What is Imperator Rome? Imperator Rome is a grand strategy game based in the year 304 BC. It goes till about the year 27 BC in terms of its timeline, but you can play beyond that if you want. The events and everything are just designed for up to that point. In this game, you could play as any of the nations that you see me panning between right now, and more that could be formed in the future. In the era of the Republic of Rome, following up the Kingdom of Rome, the aftermath of Alexander's Greek Empire and his successor kingdoms fighting for what remains of it, and the great Mauryan Empire, who I'm sure I didn't say that name right, but with their legendary leader, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, as well as many other players you may be familiar with, such as Carthage, Arvernia, the Picts, the Iceni, the Kush, and then some. Imperator Rome is set in an age of expansion and decadence, and so you will see a mixture of those playstyles in your time playing this game. Now, for anyone who's coming here from other Paradox games, for which I think the chances are pretty high, the way I could summarize how this game plays for you before I get into the nitty-gritty is, this is if you took the population system of Victoria 2, you combined it with the resources, diplomacy, economy of Europa Universalis 3, and then you threw in a military system resembling the military system of Hearts of Iron 3, simply in a much different setting. Combine all these things, including Crusader King 2's character system, and you have Imperator Rome. Before we get any further into this, I want to mention that I have a series of guides that this is a part of, and you can find them in the playlist in the description below. If you wish to learn more about this game, the answer may already be there. If not, feel free to suggest any guides you want to see, or any questions you might have in general can be appropriately placed in the comments below, and I will get to them as I can. Now, the first decision you'll find yourself making in Imperator Rome is what country to play. The tutorial is really bad, so I really suggest watching my beginner's guide, and almost in place of that, to be honest. The government type, though, will be your influencing, determining factor, probably, in what you play, if not just the thematicness of playing certain nations such as the Iceni, the Arverni, and of course, Rome. There are 3 different main government types this game has to offer: tribes, which are green, republics, which are blue, and red right now are the monarchies. Monarchies are how you get a playstyle that is very similar to playing Crusader Kings. Republics are kind of a thing of their own. I'd say they're the most new player friendly, any of these blue nations here. And then tribes are just, they're hard mode. You'll have very little longevity. Your research will be nerfed, among other things. So I would definitely factor this into your equation of picking your first nation. You've done the tutorial, you've watched some guides, and you're ready to get started. You've picked Rome, for example. I feel like that's the most popular choice, and you have to figure out what to do next. Now we can look at what this game really has to offer. Missions will be something that pop up. Some of them are special based on whether or not you own one of the game's limited DLCs, or if you're playing someone very special, such as Rome. You can select a mission and it'll provide you a series of tasks if you need help figuring out what to do, and they usually come with bonuses for doing them as well. Otherwise, in this game, you can manage your finances, which funny enough is under economy and not finances, even though this is not your economy. These are your finances. You can manage trade between every single province in the game that you might own. Province being a collection of territories, interacting with the different resources in the game. Very Europa Universalis, fittingly, because this is the sequel to Europa Universalis Rome. This essentially is a Europa game, just with a mix of other Paradox elements thrown in there. Based on what government you pick, you'll have a much different time of managing that government, instating politicians with your characters, as well as setting the laws of your nation. There are religions on the map, and they will provide you a different series of gods, which will provide you different benefits that you can cycle between and pick to emphasize. Extremely importantly is the game's culture system, which represents your population especially. And this will be the biggest way that you interact with populations. You could do things such as integrating them so that they may become citizens or even nobles. You may simply demote them to being slaves or tribesmen even, not even giving them a real place in your society. And also depending on their level of integration, you have special decisions that you can make regarding them. The game provides you with many tools to monitor things such as your trade, to even go ahead and build many buildings depending on what type of territory you're looking at, a city or a normal settlement, that will give a variety of bonuses, and even making it easier by providing things such as a macro builder to skip the tedium of going territory by territory if that's not something you're interested in. You can build highways, roadways that can become quite sprawling if we look over here, connecting the world and providing bonuses to not only movement speed, but the actual economy and even finances and civilization of different areas. The game features a number of challenges to overcome, especially in the early game, such as pirates, barbarians. There are unrest levels you'll have to monitor to prevent rebellions or civil wars, which are different. There's the monitoring of trade goods if you're trying to establish a Europa-esque economic empire based upon resources and trade. And a lot of your economy, a lot of your finances does hinge on your trade in this game. There's an entire supply system that influences how the war system works, as well as the ability to go between 3 different main strategies of creating your armies, either by levies, by legions, by mercenaries, or a combination of both. You can set your stance towards other nations, be you a bellicose Rome, a mercantile Venice, or Carthage, let's say, a neutral Greek city-state, or even a domineering Middle Eastern empire. You can also, based upon what nation you pick, change your government type within limits, as well as form empires, or even imperial cults. There's even additional decisions for flavor and bonuses, such as embellishing the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, as well as building up the lighthouse in Alexandria. There's different ideas you can pick for bonuses with limited slots based upon what government types you have. These ideas provide bonuses that can help you in many aspects. Managing your nation even is a delicate balance depending on what government type you have, where you're balancing the power base of the nation between the different characters and between the different great families that represent your nation, getting bigger, more complex, and harder to manage as your nation gets larger. You can, of course, interact with other nations via diplomacy, forming alliances, defensive leagues, guaranteeing their independence, gaining military access, having client states, tributaries, tribal vassals, fabricating claims against them, supporting rebellions within them, improving their opinion, sending them insults, you name it. This game even features a vast and very potentially complex for a new player technology tree and system here for research that I actually just made a guide on last week if you want to see how that works. The core gameplay loop you'll experience in this game will change over time. I've mentioned it briefly earlier, but for someone that starts out smaller and maybe more historically advantageous like Rome, you'll be expanding quite often, maybe not building up very much at all, building up your cities or your settlements. You might even skip over that and just expand greatly. But decadence does kick in, and you can feel it when you're playing these bigger nations, where you'll have to focus on simply keeping your empire together. The different cultures and populations that inhabit it may not always be happy, especially if led by something like a tiny Greek elite, when none of their people really end up being Greek to begin with. And there is, of course, the playstyle of tribes, who have to balance between civilizing themselves to become more like monarchies and republics, or the migratory tribes, becoming more like them, where they can simply pick up their whole nation and run away into uninhabited territories from whatever threats they face, or to more advantageous locations to take advantage of differing resources. Compared to many other grand strategy games, especially Paradox grand strategy games, Imperator Rome is not a particularly expensive game to get into. It's pretty cheap up front, and there's barely any DLC, and honestly, the DLC doesn't add much, even if the game tries to make you think otherwise. Mostly just some missions, and you could really play this as a full game experience without that. Because of that, if you're looking for a grand strategy game, especially a Paradox one to get into, I'd say this one's the best value for your money, because you're getting a full, complete game for a minimum price as far as Paradox games go. Long-term Paradox players may not enjoy that. I've seen some consider it as being abandoned and bad, but the game honestly is complete. Anything extra would just be extra and more money out of your wallet. The game is virtually bug-free, and with no Paradox scummy DLC tactics anywhere in sight, that means the price to play this game is only coming down and down as time goes on. So I hope this video was helpful to you of getting an idea of what Imperator Rome is, what it offers, how it might play, and hopefully help you make an informed purchasing decision on if this kind of game is right for you. As I mentioned, this video is a part of a guide series. You could find that in the playlists in the description below. You can also leave comments if you want to see any more videos or guides. For now though, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you, hopefully, on another video.